Today, around 1 p.m., I finished the last of the taco logs Mom and I got the other day at the Willow Inn. And when I finished those taco logs, I did so with the last of that mild, non-chunky salsa that we were given in little plastic cups for dipping sauce. It turns out what I initially thought was queso was actually tartar sauce. And that's not really very good to have with taco logs. So I put that little plastic cup of tartar sauce in the fridge. I warmed up some of the leftover roast beef from that Easter dinner and took some of our dinner rolls and sort of made these mini roast beef sandwiches. And they taste pretty good. Then around 3:30 p.m., after coloring in the front and sides of a Styrofoam Drawings jeans with some pockets and wrinkles designed to show them transition into what are currently intended to be dress shoes, though I think I initially drew them more as sneakers. And I only made corrections to draw them as dress shoes when I finished them very late today. Finished drawing in the outline of the shoes. It's currently planned that the shoes will be mostly brown, with some dark gray. I don't think I have this one yet. It was around 2:30 p.m. that I walked to Wegmans today to return to white plastic garbage bags intended for container deposits, which were either plastic or aluminum beverage containers. For one thing, walking is good exercise, and it's an opportunity to do something relatively difficult compared to what I usually do. It's something relatively fun and relaxing. It's nice to feel the cool wind. The cool wind blow on you as you walk. I was also intending to get some metallic Sharpie markers from Walgreens on the way back. Which is very close to Wegmans. Which is why I brought both of the white plastic garbage bags as opposed to just one. Though when I went to return the deposits, it turns out at the bottom of one of the garbage bags were some cupcakes Mom intended to throw out. Yeah, that weirded me out because I only expected plastic and aluminum beverage containers. That made that garbage bag relatively dirty, so I went and ended up recycling that whole plastic garbage bag along with any beverage containers that didn't have a deposit. One little can of Death Wish coffee, cold brew that I had some days ago, a couple V8 cans, and some tea-based beverages. The internet here is relatively slow to the point where I have difficulty at times accessing the world map in this game. I'll attempt to go on and then sort of gets frozen here. Which is something that has made it more difficult for me to complete the task sets for the ongoing episodic event right now. But I ultimately managed to do it at one point earlier today by switching from the 5G version of our internet to the non-5G version. By doing that, it at last finished buffering relatively quickly, within seconds, instead of being stuck forever. I got an opportunity to use the world map to complete province encounters after I got this far on the Spire of Eternity. Which I think is typically a pretty good attempt for how far I usually go. I went and upgraded this thinking that it was one of those ancient wonders that would increase the amount of damage one of my unit type does. But no, that wasn't the case, and I wish I had noticed that because I used up quite a bit of my collection of ancient knowledge packs in order to be able to upgrade this ancient wonder. I only had 9 rune shards for this ancient wonder, and I got this far with those 9 after using my collection of 10 broken shards to forge one of the runes for free. After putting in everything the machine accepted, I didn't even initially try the sparkling cranberry juice diet aluminum cans because I thought those weren't accepted by Wegmans, but it turns out they do have deposits after taking it to the customer service desk counter, which is where you go to redeem container deposits. I got back $4.55, money I plan to use to make a stop and get some Sharpie markers at Walgreens, but I ended up not doing that. The $4.55 wasn't enough after tax, which is 8% here, to get anything more substantial than single Sharpie markers that they had on a clearance sale. They didn't even seem to have the initial metallic Sharpie markers I was looking for. They had a couple fine black Sharpie markers, fine being the default run-of-the-mill tip. Good for general drawing. Ultra-fine tips are good for fine details. And chisel/king size tips are good for spreading color over a large area. The way to and back from Wegmans ended up being complicated because the sidewalk before and after one of the intersections, a major intersection I have to cross, those waiting areas for that intersection were closed off due to people doing road work on those sections of the sidewalk. So I had to stay behind the tape and the traffic cones for safety purposes while I pressed the intersection crosswalk buttons, and then I waited, technically in the street, but only a bit so as to stay outside of that coned-in area, while I waited for the red hand to turn into the green man on that light. Here they're called crosswalks, but in the UK they might be called pelican crossings or zebra crossings. In my mind, though, it's fine that they're doing this road work. It's important to maintain infrastructure that could have prevented me from tripping in the future due to a pothole on that sidewalk and whatnot. I could probably resolve that gap through activating this research technology. In the game Sword Fight, I currently plan on building a new school when I hit 100,000 fame. I started a new disciple today. They're currently at... last I checked, I had gotten them somewhere between level 600 and 700. On the way to right before reaching Wegmans and right after leaving Wegmans, I cut across that little wooded area they have around Wegmans, being careful to avoid the pond usually, except pretty close to that pond there was a plastic water bottle that could be a deposit, so I carefully approached the pond after returning the deposits and getting the $4.55 back. To the point where I kind of crawled down the slope until I could reach that plastic water bottle. There was also a Coca-Cola can, but that one was on the rocks to presumably a sort of sewer entrance within that pond area. It was on the very cusp of being in the pond, which to me didn't look that deep, but I still don't want to mess with a pond area that slopes downward as you approach it. So I ignored that Coca-Cola aluminum can. Even if the extra 2 deposits could mean that if I went back and returned them, I could afford 2 black Sharpie markers in a pack at Walgreens. It was about 4:30 p.m. when I got back. From returning bottle deposits. It was about 5 p.m. when Mom and I both sat down together at this dining table. Me here, Mom here. Yeah, so we could both have a warmed up Wendy's chili that was put into one of our real bowls. One of our bowls, because the container Wendy's gives you for a chili is not microwave safe. Ever since that period, I've pretty much just been working on the latest styrofoam drawing project. I colored in the back of those jeans and drew in the side and back detail for the now dress shoes. I think it was in the noon/afternoon period that I drew in the face and colored it in. That included drawing some stubble, facial hair, and then around that stubble area, I colored that in red in order to simulate 5 o'clock shadow. On skin, I colored orange. On a styrofoam drawing I intend to be of a Hispanic male. And I did some blending of the red area for the facial hair area. I did some blending with the orange Sharpie marker I used to color in the general skin areas. And I also decided I didn't need to be too fancy with the belt buckle area on the front, since a fancy belt buckle would look kind of silly on a snakeskin patterned belt. So I made a basic belt buckle drawing and then colored the belt buckle in using a gold Sharpie marker that I earlier used to color in the front jeans button. For today's trip, in which I went to Wegmans to return some bottles, I wore my dress shoes, which are now in my room, so they can serve as a reference for how dress shoes should look when I draw them. Should I decide further detail is necessary. Pants, a t-shirt, a light coat that was gray, the same shade of gray as the pants, and a colorfully patterned hat with some frills, and that I found in the closet of my room. It was a pretty cool hat, and I liked how it looked. I'll be sure to wear it again in future. Bottle returns. Trips. Apparently, the weather app that comes with my search engine, in this case I think it's Bing, apparently said at some point today there was special weather, a combination of rain and snow. I played many games of Bloons Tower Defense 6, generally lost monkey money on continues, some of which were caused by not paying attention. It apparently rained during the late afternoon / early evening period, though I didn't really pay much attention to that. Though today was an overcast day, it didn't rain on me. So by the time it did rain, if it did, I was already inside at my room.